Hi, everyone. Today is Wednesday, May the 26th of 2021, and we're here at Rudy's Psychic Meetup with, of course, Rudy Lago. And how are you doing tonight, Rudy?
Hey everyone, great. I am about to go on vacation to the nice Florida beach next week, so I am looking forward to that and starting to turn my brain off from my day job. So, looking forward to my time on the beach next week.
And practicing for the future, no doubt. And
That's
we
right.
have other people who are, some of them are in their retirement year, like Winner in the chat there. He has changed it to Winner, it's retirement year. And he had said that actually before we had that big, huge lift in the market and ran to the trillion. We were all feeling pretty good that things were going to start happening to the upside. Nice to see Tiffany in the room and Susan OG, lot shakers here, and of course Crypto Tarzan. I can't imagine Crypto Tarzan not coming to a Rudy Psychic meetup. And nice to see you, Hummingbird and Waya 64. So, what do you have for us tonight, Rudy?
Well, tonight, let me get a refreshing beverage. I got my Doge cup here. Everything tastes better out of this cup for sure.
Fantastic.
But tonight's topic is all about skulls. So, Sam, with a lot of the news coming out about UFOs, the government's admitting that they don't know what they are, we're starting to see more kind of the slow leak evidence of, whether it's aliens or, at least UFOs, something's going on. But all along, there's been these clues or these things that people have claimed are evidence of aliens that have been here in the past. And a lot of this comes from some of these skulls. There's a couple different categories I wanted to cover. It's funny when you start to think about one, it's like, oh yeah, there's crystal skulls, there's elongated skulls. So we're going to go through these and just get your take on them, because there's always critics around these. There's always people that just like to go right to the woo-woo and think the aliens are the answer. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this.
Okay.
So tonight we're going to start off with the Legend of the Crystal Skulls. So for some of you that might remember, they did an Indiana Jones movie with this theme. Do you remember that from years and years ago? They kind of converged a couple of these theories, but the backstory is, in the late 19th century, there was about a dozen carved skulls made out of clear or milky white quartz, and they started to make their way into private and public collections around the world. Now, none of these had been formally excavated, but this is what, early 1900s, and no one really knows the origin of these. But the mystery has grown, and the legend is really that there's 13 of these are said to exist. But the difficulty with quartz crystal is it can't be carbon dated. So no one really knows how old they are. But the legend, some people claim that these date back thousands to tens of thousands of years to some of these ancient Mesoamerican civilizations like the Aztecs or the Maya. Of course, with things like this, people think, well, there's supernatural powers, or it's going to enhance your abilities if you're in the presence of these crystal skulls. Other people linked them to Atlantis. But Sam, just in general, what do you think about this particular set of 13 crystal skulls? Anything to this superstition or this legend around it?
Well, I know I was given a video a while back in early days to review of this crystal skull. And I didn't think it was a collection of 13. I thought it was one quite large one.
Okay.
But I feel like all of these they are just frauds,
Okay.
all of them. And it was just a way for them to make money during the time. And people were more gullible back then too.
Yeah, that's as they look at these, there skull. There was very popular within, I think, the pre-Columbian representation of skulls. In original analysis, they said, well, these didn't have any tool markings on them. They couldn't. They thought that these were made, weren't made with traditional tools. So that kind of continued to the legend. But yeah, I could see that. Just the mystery behind these is probably easier to pull over on people in the early 1900s. So interesting. All right, well, thanks for that, Sam. Next up, we're going to look at the Paracas skulls. So Sam, with the Paracas skulls, these were discovered on the southern coast of Peru going back, like starting in the 1920s, there was a Peruvian archaeologist, and they found these buried in mausoleums that were way, deep into the bedrock, built by the ancient Paracas people, and they were dated to that region probably between 800 and 100 BC, somewhere in there. Now, most of the people will explain these skulls away as head binding or head cradling, and that's kind of an ancient practice where people will, when infants are small and their skulls are soft, they will put boards on them and wrap their heads to shape them like this.
Yeah.
Um, there's also the theory that, well, maybe some of these had some sort of disease like hydrocephalus, which causes, kind of water, cerebral fluid to build up and disform the brain. But the thing is, there's some of these that have some really unique features. And so, like, they have a very pronounced cheekbone. The eye sockets are different, and even like the way, if you think of the human skull, has three sections that come together, and you kind of have those three lines in the middle. These have just like one section over the top. So, some really unique qualities to these. They even have some of these have holes towards the back of the head where you might think like nerves or blood will flow through. So, Sam, as you kind of look at these, is there anything to any of these Paracas skulls? Do you think these are all human, or could these possibly have a different origin?
They're all human, and it's from the head binding. And with this group of people, or these different groups of people, it was part of the culture. So you can imagine that some people got very creative, with the head binding with their children and started doing things that would also manipulate the eye sockets. And,
Okay.
for example, if they wanted their children to have wider eyes, um, they would start manipulating that early on. And that was just part of the culture. And it's not anything we could imagine doing to our children nowadays in the
Yeah.
21st century or the 20th century, but this was a long time ago. Um, yeah. And so that is the majority of these skulls. There are um, there are examples of you know um, people, or I would say beings, that have come here from another place. And I think that they have found samples of their skeletons.
Okay.
But these are, this is like one in a million kind of thing. Whereas you're talking about an entire culture of people who did this, is what I'm being told.
Okay. Yeah, and the one theory, like you'll see, some of these had really fine red hair. And, there's always this theory that, well, maybe this came from a completely different species of people. But what they're finding is, now that they've done more DNA analysis, some of these are actually have like from basically the Arabian, peninsula area or Europe. So, you would think that maybe our people have traveled far more than we are told in our history books, that there was a lot of sea travel, and people did intermingle, far longer ago than we think that actually happened.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. Well, the last one then is the Star Child. This is called the Star Child skull. And I think I probably know the answer to this one as well. But this one came to fame in the early 2000s. And this was from an American author and paranormal researcher named Lloyd Pye, who came across this. And what he claimed is this, just because of the nature of it. Let me find here, Star Child. There we go. Um, this skull was found. It was a child found alongside an adult who didn't have this type of skull, and basically he claimed to got this from a couple from El Paso, Texas, who said the skull was found around the 1930s in a mine, and it was buried alongside a normal human skeleton that was exposed and lying supine on the surface of the tunnel. But based on the analysis of this one, similar to these other ones, Paracas skulls, where they say, like the eye sockets are different, the volume of the head is actually, of the brain is actually larger than you might see with a normal human. And people always argue that, well, head binding and some of these things can't increase the volume of the brain. All you can do is reshape it. The eye orbits are different. But and skeptics will claim that this is obviously just a result of congenital hydrocephalus, which is that fluid on the brain type thing. Sam, what do you think about this particular Star Child skull?
I think it's somebody who had that encephalitis severely and died from it.
Okay.
and you can see that it pushed the skull way out, and so the eyes caved in
Hmm.
closer together because I mean it moves things around, right?
Yeah.
And so that's all that happened there,
Okay.
and the adult was probably the mother.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what you would. That's the logical conclusion. So interesting. These things, because they're ancient and because there isn't a lot of good information, it's easy to, like you say, with anybody can, put a claim to these, and it's really hard to disprove, right?
Yeah, that's why I just look at it, and I mean, I have no idea. There's no reason for me to have any information at all, but I just ask the people on the other side and see if they have an answer for me or not. If they give me something that's easy for me to understand and very clear, then I feel very confident that that information is correct, and that's what I'm here to share with people is my answer to those things. But they're not really my answers. They're just I like I said, if I can access information for readings and um, you know making predictions on outcomes to do with financial and cryptos, etc., then why not ask about this kind of stuff too?
Yeah, that's why it's fun to bring this to you to get we can shortcut the answer and get the real story. So, all right, well, that was interesting. Thank you, Sam. And I think with all these, apparent not hoaxes, but it's misinformation. I think if any of these alien skeletons were to come out, it would probably be pretty hard to prove. But like you said, if there are some, that's probably few and far between.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so let's get started with the questions. Our top one voted six tonight was from Hillbilly Bear.
All right. Hillbilly Bear writes, in the relief package, I believe in December of last year, the Trump administration put a small caveat. In the 5,500-page bill, Congress issued a directive that the Pentagon will declassify all UFO data within 6 months. That time is coming to pass in late June. Do you see the Pentagon adhering to the Congress and releasing all data on the unexplained phenomena?
Yes, I mean, certainly within limits. They'll probably try to exclude the weapons that they've reversed engineered and have figured out just due to, national security. They
Okay.
can't really talk about that kind of stuff. But the harmless stuff, they can release all that. They certainly have a lot of it. And doesn't it seem like they have really been getting people ready to find out? And you can tell that this is what they're positioning for, because I think that they're seeing more and more activity, and everybody's walking around with phones in their pocket,
Mm,
and then they can share it on their own, so you can't swoop in anymore and
yeah.
collect. It doesn't matter if you collect all of the wreckage from the crash, people have the video of it.
Yeah, it's that slow drip, drip, drip that now we're ready. And it's interesting that he asked that because I think I saw Cliff tweet this today, something about emotional
Mhm.
data coming up in the June July timeframe. So that would tie in with that. So interesting.
Mhm.
We'll see what comes. All right. Tanya Oz writes, recently I read, "The body hears everything your mind says." Do you agree with this statement? And what does that say about people experiencing physical pain, specifically chronic pain? Thank you for any insights.
Well, I mean, I still believe that chronic pain is neurological, not emotional. That's been my experience. Yes, some people have psychosomatic pain, but for the most part, it's a scientific fact that if, let's say, if you burnt yourself really bad right here, this part of your arm, if you went out in the hot sun with just
Yeah.
a short sleeve shirt on, and this part of your arm with the sun beating down on it would feel differently than this part of your arm. Now,
Okay.
what's that about? Well, what it is your nerves are hyperactive to the heat because of what happened to you before. It's a neurological thing. It's not an emotional thing.
Okay.
It's not, oh, you're not imagining that pain right there. A lot of times that's how people discover it, because they go out in the sun and they're like, oh my gosh, that's just like I'm on fire again.
Yeah.
I got to cover it up because it's oversensitive
Okay.
to
Yeah.
any type of heat.
I will say, in my wife's experience with healing, I'd be interested to see if Doc has any similar things, where she has dealt with people that have some pains that come up, and it might be an emotional blockage, and she is able to clear those up, and it's to that psychosomatic. I'm not sure exactly how you'd explain it or what the science is behind it, but I know with some of the work she does, she's been able to help people. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's hard, like with some of this chronic stuff, and that if there is an injury, it's hard to zero in on what the actual cause was. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of times people can have numerous injuries to their body. I
yeah,
mean, numerous car accidents that they've been in that they thought were minor at the time, but, things pile up and, maybe you
yeah,
had a real head over tea kettle accident when you were skiing one time and, you didn't have to go to the hospital or anything, but, it got you out of alignment for
yeah,
a little while. And again, it's mostly, like I was saying, neurological reasons why you're feeling the pain, but yes, of course there's psychosomatic pain,
okay,
and that's a whole other can of worms that I probably wouldn't get into. But like I said, I do think that um there are people who have abilities to heal that, whether it's
okay,
psychosomatic or actual physical chronic pain caused by the
okay.
neurological messages from the brain saying, hey, that hurts.
Okay. Thanks for that question, Tanyaz. William Penn writes, how will religion change in the light of the reality of aliens? Should people of faith take such heavy credence in the Bible? Yeah, Sam, how do you see this information coming out affecting society at large? It seems, I'll say, if being on the news, it seems like people are just taking it in stride. I don't.
Well, I don't think, believing in the Bible, has to be considered any less just because there's aliens. I mean, I think that they wrote in the Bible what they knew about at the time. And, and they're talking mainly about, not only life lessons, but about salvation. And their message was to mankind, not to alien kind. That's sort of the general answer for that type of query, which is completely reasonable, of course. That was a great question,
Yeah.
William. I have to say that, I enjoy the stories in the Bible. I enjoy the historical parts of the Bible. When you're reading it, it's like, oh, this thing actually happened. So there's a lot of things in the Bible and in other teachings for other religions that are very similar,
Yeah.
that are interesting to read. And I don't think that aliens arriving should cause people to cling any less to their beliefs. And it's mainly a belief system that they want to put in place, for their family. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I know even like with whether it's yoga or some of the spirituality stuff, people think if it's not in the Bible, it's
Yeah.
sacrilegious, and it's not. And I've even seen I don't know if it's the Jesuits that run one of the largest observatories, but even people in the church have said that, well, it just proves that if God did create us, He created these as well. So I don't know if it'll be that traumatic to folks. Maybe the Pope will make a comment about it. We'll see.
Mm.
Omar Alejandro Colicchio Delgado. It's kind of a personal question, so I'll kind of generalize it. But Omar is saying his aunt had some issues. She's brain dead, and he's felt that the way to pray that we've been taught is just to repeat the prayers over and over again. Is that enough? What does the other side say about how we can pray? Are they always listening? Does prayer influence at all God's will, if God's will is involved? Is it God's will, a soul's plan? All these kinds of questions you go through with a traumatic experience, Sam. What can you say about just how to pray and what we can do when we pray?
Well, from what I understand about prayer, it's all about intentions. And when you stop what you're doing and you focus on that person, and whether you're saying the words over and over again or you're, speaking to source about it, it's God, the collective, um, the ones in charge, you're speaking to them in, clear sentences, making requests. It doesn't matter because both result in the same. And it does say, for example, we talk about it in, lines in the Bible. It does say in the Bible that when two or more gather in my name, that will shall be done. Now, I was listening to a song, thank God for unanswered prayers. Sometimes you're lucky you don't get what you asked for, because then you would have missed out
Yeah.
for the good stuff that was truly coming for you. So you have to trust that, your plan is to have the best life and just make the best decisions that you can. And in regards to people who, are in a coma and brain dead, many times there's nothing wrong with praying for, especially, if they're elderly. And it's just one of the things that probably their time has come to an end and it is time for them to go. And they would agree. And what they want is to be released.
Okay.
And, you can pray, and that you can affect by helping them pass over quicker. And because, when they're stuck in a state like that, they're still stuck to their body and they can't complete their transition to the other side while they're still alive here.
Sam, do you think they're more likely to be able to hear you in your prayers if you're praying, and speaking to them in your thoughts, that in that, whether that's brain dead state, that they're closer to the other side, so they'd be able to kind of pick up on your energy?
I wouldn't say so. Like, here, they're still here. But when you're there in the room with them, like they I think become aware of who's there and that sort of thing, because they do slip out of their body here and there, because they're trying to die. They're trying to get away from their body, but their body's not quitting because they're attached to the machine. Or, I don't know. Sometimes people take an overdose of morphine, for example, if they have. I know one lady who had brain cancer.
Okay.
And once things stopped working for her, she was actually able to set it up so that someone would come over to her house. And I was like, well, it's about time they started allowing people to make those choices. She was like, I don't want to be, peeing my pants and my kids changing my bottom and stuff, or having, she goes, I don't want to take it that far to the end. I'd rather take it as far as I can and say goodbye to everybody, and then, have it done with, and then cross over. So sometimes I'm feeling like praying for the person's recovery is not really the right direction to go, because Omar talks about, what's God's will. And it's like, well, everyone has to appreciate that there's accidental death, or, there's accidents that happen to people. And that tends to be when people are younger. But when people are older and they have something like that happen, it's probably their end. And I always pray that they go quickly and easily, that they don't suffer. That's my main focus, is that they have a very peaceful, transition.
Okay. Well, thanks, Omar. Hope that was helpful, and we'll say a prayer for your aunt as well.
Yeah.
And our next question comes from Matt Zelenko, and he says, "Hi, legends. ZetaTalk.com. The info on this site, allegedly from the Zetas, gray aliens from the Zeta Reticuli, leads one to believe that the Earth is going to be completely devastated during a full-fledged pole shift about to occur in the coming years. Is one to believe in the information provided on this website? Also, isn't the recent trend of billionaires building nuclear shelters in places as remote as New Zealand, determined by the Zetas as one of the safe locations, linked to this belief?"
Well, New Zealand actually has a lot of factors that make it a safe place, even if there are, worldwide shortages of things, the same as America, because America can pretty much manufacture everything that it needs to, because it has enough raw materials between the US and Canada. So, and billionaires are a little bit eccentric anyways, and they have all that money, and they might be a little bit paranoid as well. So they can probably be enticed into, spending a few $100,000 or $1 million on, what's $1 million when you're a paranoid billionaire?
Yeah.
To get one of those little bomb shelter thingamadoos in like New Zealand. You just take your friends there and party in the meantime. That's my attitude on that. I'm like, oh, well, I wouldn't read too much into that. And this whole Zetas, gray aliens, they don't know. Listen, I don't know the names of any of these aliens. And I will tell you, there are many kinds, and about 80% of them are scientists or travelers. And the other 20% are troublemakers.
Okay.
and there's all kinds of different looks to them, and you name it, it's out there. But as far as naming them and stuff, oh my gosh, I'm sure I don't have the only game in town here, but when people are reading something to me, and also the whole doomsday mantra that they're talking about, this pole shift thing, that's not going to happen like people think it's going to happen. It's going to be very slow, and it's going to take hundreds of years. It's like when the tide comes in. If you don't move, then of course you're going to drown, right?
Yeah.
When it's up to your ankles and then it's up to your knees, time to start heading back into the shore. If you don't, it's your own, and you let it go over your head and you drown. Well, that's your own fault.
Right.
This quote unquote devastating pole shift. This is not anything that hasn't happened to the world before, and not well. It's happened while men have been alive too, and they didn't have near the amount of technology that we have today. So I'm here to calm the farm down. Everybody just needs to relax. There's not going to be any pole shifts that's going to kill everybody. There's no vaccines where they're going to be like microchipping you and stalking you for the rest of your life and making sure you buy a certain brand toothpaste. There's no comet that's going to come as it passes by and emit these rays that make all our cell phones go dead. Like, none of that's going to happen. Like, we are headed into a renaissance once the financial system implodes very slowly. It's actually kind of very tricky how the cryptocurrencies have just kind of snuck in there. It's like you can't stop it now. It's like honey badger, right? So anyways, that's my answer on that. Thanks for that great question. I hadn't heard about it, so I appreciate those questions, and I don't want people to ever feel dumb about posting them, because I don't spend a lot of time on the internet. I rely on you guys to bring this stuff to me, and thanks for sharing about zetatalk.com. I might drop in and take a look and see what other crazy stuff is on their website. It could be interesting and a little bit entertaining too.
Yeah.
But I don't much care for the anxiety-laden stuff, though. None of that's going to happen.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. IC writes, "Hi there. I've been hearing sounds for the longest time, but lately the humming is at a very high frequency and at times combined with other lower vibrating sounds. Why the different sounds, and should I be doing something with it? Thanks, IC."
I think you should I think it might be tinnitus.
Okay.
You should get it checked, because I'm not getting anything sorry guys, I'm just trying to grab my tea here. It's behind. There we go. Yeah, I would just get that checked. I'm not thinking that that's anything what you've described there. I'm not getting that that's any sort of, if you said to me, I'm starting to do this blank, whatever the supernatural ability is, like talking about stuff that people were talking about before you got into the room, or, guessing numbers, or, specifically large numbers, that kind of stuff, detailed things. If you said that along with this high-pitched whistle was coming at the same time, then I'd see a correlation, and I might think that it was something to do with the supernatural experience or the increased vibrations. But I'm going to go on the side of it's probably something like tinnitus.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I know there are others in the group that, do kind of hear that sound of the universe, if you will, or can pick up on that, but they also have other gifts as well that we're aware of. So,
yes.
All right. Dilbara writes, "Hi, Sam. I have read material on drinking kerosene for health benefits as a cancer cure. I would like to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you."
Right. I don't think that that's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely not.
And Sam, this made me think of something though, and I'm going to share. So, Dilbara, I'm glad you brought this up, because it reminded me of someone. I think her name is Dr. Jennifer Daniels, and she is one that did some research on basically it's turpentine. It's not, you think of turpentine as something you clean your paintbrushes with, but it's 100%. What do we call it here? Hold on. It is the gum. Let's see. Here it is. 100% pure gum spirits turpentine as kind of a cure-all that slaves used to use. And she came upon this when she was doing some research, thinking, there's been tales in the slave community of a cure-all, and she was thinking it has to be something that would be cheap, you wouldn't be able to refrigerate it, and that everybody had access to. And she started asking around just from some of the oral traditions, and people remember grandma or somebody making them drink something horrible. Sam, what do you think about something like this turpentine? Are there things that can definitely help with this? Whether that's reducing your body's pH level or things that can help cure. And I shouldn't say cure. That's a no-no, but can help you recover with some of these.
Yeah, I think that one's different, where it's pure
Mm-hmm.
oil, turpentine oil. So it's not something that's chemically treated. It's from the actual plant.
Yeah.
So it's not like a poison type of thing, but it's obviously something that the body can process, but it'll go after anything that's like a foreign body. Like Alex was saying, turpentine. I heard it's good. It's a good dewormer.
Okay.
Because obviously anything it'll go after other stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, these tales of cure-alls, and there
yeah,
that there's research to them. So okay,
yeah.
good stuff.
Me, I'm not doing any of that though. I don't ever do it. I'm like, no, you first.
You're not juicing celery, taking turpentine. Come on.
No, yeah, yeah,
All right. Oh, Mojo's used it. Hey, put something in Discord. I'm curious to hear
yeah.
about this. Sandra writes, "Hi, Sam and Rudy. What are your thoughts on sleep paralysis?"
Oh, totally real.
Okay.
Totally
Yeah,
real. Yeah,
I used to have it happen to me when I was younger, college age. I would always feel like I was being pinned down, and somebody was like hitting
yeah.
my legs. And it's gone away as I've gotten older. It pops up once in a while. But Sam, what do you think actually causes sleep paralysis? Are these entities on the other side? Is it just something the body does naturally?
I think it's just something that the body does naturally, but there are, of course, cases
Okay.
where, and this would be again someone who is more inclined to be like a medium,
Okay.
who's leveling up. So then you're going to have, well, this is a different story then.
Yeah.
Right now, that's an attack, and they are actually being held down. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. But most times, because most people have had sleep paralysis, and most people have not been attacked by demonic entities. That's something that most people will go through their entire life and not experience.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it's quite terrifying for somebody who's not, um, protected in
Hmm.
that area yet, as of yet. So, or doesn't know what's going on. It's quite terrifying for them. But I believe what you experienced was sleep paralysis.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah, I learned to just shake myself awake. I can get out of it once you can kind of start to
Yeah.
realize when you're in it. So, Glenn Shaw writes, new here, not sure if this is the right forum. I'll kind of generalize this. So, with mysterious physical issues, I feel like in this case feels like it's killing him. Sam, any thoughts on like when you come down with a sudden illness or some sort of condition, how to deal with that? I think when medical science can't seem to diagnose it or pinpoint it. Any thoughts on how a person can kind of deal with some of these things that come up?
Well, I would need a bit of back and forth with Glenn in order to, maybe have any luck with that. And this would, even though I'm not doing any readings right now, I'd be willing to make an exception for Glenn,
Okay.
because I'm going to need some, I would need some back and forth for something like that. I mean, if it's, affecting him like that and nobody can figure out what it is, if I can get something going, like, because
Yeah.
usually when I'm able to talk to somebody like one on one, then I can get into their ethos and I can do a better job,
Okay.
getting the information rather than in this kind of venue. And I know that because I've been so crazy busy
Yeah.
that I'm not booking new readings like right for now. But if Glenn wants to get in touch with me, just send a message to me at Samantha Jane 1973 at hotmail.com. That's my
Okay.
direct private email.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, that looks like it's even more than an ask a medium question as well. So,
Yeah, I'm just thinking because this is for basic and above that I
okay.
don't know if Glenn is part. He might be one of the newer people though. I don't know, Glenn. We
Okay.
have a couple of Glens. He might be one of the basic members and not have access to Ask a Medium. But even something like that, because it's such a serious health thing,
Yeah.
right? And we were talking earlier about psychosomatic stuff too, because like it could be anything, really that's affecting this person, but obviously, it's quite traumatic because it's going on and nobody's able to help them.
Okay. Joy Expanded has kind of a personal question, but I think this is a good one. I'll read it out here. Hi, Sam and Rudy. Thanks for being here. A year ago, despite the craziness of the world, I had never felt better. I was exercising, journaling, meditating every day, and feeling like the top of the world. We had a trauma in our family, which set off a slew of events, and it threw me off. I should know better to keep those things in place, but I didn't, and having a hard time getting back to my high vibrational self. What tools do you use to get your back to yourself when life is busy and giving you opportunities?
Oh, I have to actually write it in my planner.
Okay.
I'll be straight up with you. I got to write it in my planner, and I got to, and make more plans for it. Like I found it usually takes about 21 days
Yeah.
to build a habit.
Schedule it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is a period of time where you are just, it's just brute force, like
Okay.
really, and just to accept it. Just be ready to bug the crap out of yourself for like 21 days to make sure that you get it done. But the other thing too, if let's say, for example, a really big one is, weight loss or just getting in shape, not
Hmm.
necessarily, people aren't necessarily, overweight. They just want to get into shape.
Yeah.
And, the first 2 weeks is, rather hellish sometimes. You're in quite a bit of pain. But once you break through that, you won't dare go back to zero again because just just don't want to go
Yeah.
through it. But like I said, you just have to just 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 go forward and just say and plan it, schedule it in.
Yeah, and I think she knows the recipe. She said that there at the beginning, so good
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
All right. Mark writes, "Hi Sam and Rudy. Will governments announce further exploration of Antarctica in our lifetime? Admiral Byrd explored with the Navy in the 1960s. Are there undiscovered artifacts located there? My understanding is the Antarctica Treaty currently prohibits exploration or mining for a period of 50 years from an amendment in 1991."
Okay. Well, Mark, I unfortunately do not have an answer for any of that for this time, but
Okay.
feel free to circle back in the future. Just because I don't have an answer now doesn't mean that I won't. I try to see what I can pick up while you're reading it, and I was looking and looking, and
Okay.
I just couldn't get it. I couldn't grab anything.
And I think in the past you've said within the Antarctic region there is like a huge, wealth of natural resources. It's just
Yes.
kind of it's an amazing place, but
Yeah.
nothing what paranormal there.
No, no, but I do think that they're hiding what they have there. They
Okay.
are hiding it. Isn't that convenient, right? So 1991, 50 years from 1991, they're like, "Oh, well, I'll be dead by then at least, or I won't be at this job anymore.
Well,
I'll have my pension by then."
let's keep the resources scarce so we can all make some money. That's the
It's
trick.
not even about that. They just don't
Oh,
want people down there digging around finding that big underground cavernous lake
oh my
and
God.
all that. What? Because I mean, they have what's in there. Like that's a secret. Shh.
It's their own private thing. Oh
Yeah,
God.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Drive me nuts. It's like those people that don't want you in the forest.
yeah.
All right. Marcos Wu writes, "Hi, Sam and Rudy. Do you see the U.S. getting crypto smart cities in the near future? If so, how would these cities look and feel?" So, Sam, any new communities that are building up based on the cryptocurrency economy and digital?
You know what? If you went onto YouTube and you searched for videos on Singapore, right, and just the experience of living in Singapore or whatever, you can see a perfect example of what a blockchain or crypto smart city would look like. Because that was the first flash. That was the first thing I saw. Like I was like, we already have something similar to what can see them building.
Okay.
And that's going to make the divide in the US even larger because as we know, there's certain areas of the US where the governments there have doubled down in their failure and the people are just not doing anything about it, supporting them. I don't know what's going on there. I don't get into it because I'm not American. It's none of my business, but it concerns me because I like to see everybody doing well. But I just wanted to bring that up so people would know that there are going to be cities in the US, but they're probably not going to be ones like Portland
Hmm.
or Chicago or, any of these, lost cities that are going to rely quite a bit on a potential bailout, which is probably not going to come at the level that they need it.
Yeah, I remember something a few years ago, and I think was it Winter or somebody's writing, about building a city, and somebody would be a blockchain base, and they were selling property, but I think that's a good point. Is it's not like it's going to be built out of the desert. It's already
No.
exists, and there's societies or small nation states that are already implementing it quite well.
Yeah, yeah, cities that are doing like really well or building up quite a bit.
Okay.
Where let's say this entire new section is being built up because, one of the places in I'm going to use Mexico as an example. Their population increased from about 30,000 to 300,000
Hmm.
in a period of only 10 years.
Yeah.
So you can imagine there would probably be like entire swaths of area that are brand new, that are just very well planned, and all of this stuff can be applied. So it's going to be in the new stuff. And this is where where people are moving to.
Okay.
So new, and there's newer stuff being built, right? Like in failing cities, you're not going to be building new stuff there.
Okay.
Is my point with that. So there's going to be an even wider divide, but thankfully it makes the people of the have not places
Mhm.
look a little bit closer at maybe just getting rid of their politicians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Pony Pete writes, "Dear Sam, I guess we do not know what exactly is the other side, but will we once we all go there and be able to assist our descendants? All the best."
Yeah. Well, our descendants actually don't need any assistance, but maybe that's just in the translation
Okay.
with to the English language. I have to tell you, I'm impressed over and over again with how well people are able to write, even in English, even though it's not their first language.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate that, Pony Pete's first language is not English, and I know what he means. Um, and it is true. I mean, we don't really know what the other side is. I can try to describe it, but I don't get to see everything either
Okay.
because it's just just the way that it is. I'm on a needs to know basis. I don't need to know everything, and sometimes I thank God to that for that because it allows me to have a somewhat normal life every day. Because otherwise, it would be very difficult to have a normal life if you like knew everything all the time about everybody and the world and the universe, and you'd be with they'd be carting you off in no time. Whereas I get information as I need to know it, whether
Yeah.
it's about cryptocurrencies or current political situations, or me sort of telling people, no, calm the farm down. That comet is not going to hit us next Thursday, right? And then, of course, Thursday, everything comes and goes, and we're still all alive, and the comet didn't hit us. So, you know, all of these things that we get scaremongered into over the last 2 years. I mean, we've been holding on to each other in regards to all of that stuff as well. But that's a great
Yeah.
question, Pony Pete. And it is nice and comforting to know that regardless, when we pass away, we join our people on the other side who have been with us all the way along and assist us. And, in that still small voice, try to give us some guidance. And
Yeah.
for those of you who schedule readings with me, those are the people who talk to me, who tell me what it is that you need to know to have a better life.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Sam. Next question comes from Jackie S. Hi, Sam and Rudy. Do we know who exactly started Bitcoin? Was it Hal Finney, who died of ALS in 2014, or someone else? Was it a group of people? If it was a group of people, what country are they from, and are they still working on fixes for the Lightning Network? Is this the reason Bitcoin won't be around in the future? Thanks.
It is a number of people, and they are not working on Bitcoin no longer. They work on other stuff, and some of them have since passed away.
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe Hal Finney was one of them, but if he was, he's not the only one because I'm being shown a group of people.
Okay.
But I don't really have much information about that kind of stuff because if I could, like, I could give you the exact address of where America's most wanted person is
All right.
right now, that sort of thing, right? I would be worth my weight in gold, like literally.
Okay.
on an hourly basis.
I think it was the last time. It's been almost a couple of years since we talked about that. So it was a good question, Jack. All right, we can skip that one. Next question from Raymond. George de la Warr was a British gentleman that invented a radionics camera in the 1950s. Marcel Vogel used the camera, and he said he could use it to see sources of illness as well as images from the past and the future. Was there any validity to it? Thanks, Tim and Rudy. Have a nice Memorial Day weekend, everyone.
Thank you, Raymond, for that great question. I do believe that maybe a couple of years ago, somebody did ask me about that. I hadn't heard about it before. So I did have a chance to look through what documentation was there on Marcel Vogel. And I was getting, and as Rudy was reading the question, I was getting the same thing, that it was a fraud.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I got that last time too.
Okay. Good.
But it was really how I remembered it, because fraud came out and then I saw the pictures and then I was like, oh yeah, that was from a couple of years ago. I remember now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. YS64 writes, Hi, Sam and Rudy. I just started to read a book, Alien Interview. It is reported to be the notes and recollections of a U.S. Army nurse who was the interpreter for an alien who survived the 1947 Roswell UFO crash. I have already read some things that don't line up with things that Sam has said in the past. My question is this real or fictional, this alien interview? What do you think, Sam?
Oh, it's completely fictional. Again, you have to remember that there are a breed of humans out there who will do anything to get attention, and I mean, I try as a medium not to talk too much about things that I cannot prove.
Yeah.
I can tell you like what my jobs are on the other side or what my impression is and stuff, but you know what? I can't prove that. So that's
Okay.
why I don't talk about that kind of stuff. Right? This lady, she cannot prove a whit. She can't prove anything of that at all. And I get that as you were reading it, totally complete fraud. And listen, most times, like with all of the aliens, they don't speak a language. They speak with their minds.
Interesting. Okay. Um, all right. Kwaku writes, Can you speak about the different chakras of the earth? I guess, Sam, does the earth have chakras? A healer told me I would be healing my lower chakras just for the fact of living in Africa that I have blocked. The things that I have suffered, insomnia since he was 8, treated it many ways unsuccessfully. But when the first day he arrived in Ghana, he went to bed and slept straight away and slept like that every day. But then he went back to Europe and insomnia again. And then, when he went back to Ghana, he can sleep. So, Sam, do you think this is related to chakras? What do you think is causing that?
I think that sometimes people are very sensitive, like empaths.
Mm.
I think Kwaku is a very strong empath, and being in such an oppressed and busy place like the continent of like Europe
No.
is, so many people are crammed in there. It's becoming a very unfortunate place. I don't think that the vibe works very well with him. And in Africa, it's also a different humidity and everything for his body as well. So I got that was helping, because
Okay.
when you read out loud living in Africa,
Uh-huh.
I got the knowing about the humidity with the
Oh, okay.
connection to his body. So there's two things going on here together. So it
Okay.
has to do, but there's no chakras of the earth. Like we have chakras in our body, like the one here, because I can feel them. It's so strange when I am like sometimes like seeing a picture, or like when I talk about how I the sky kind of opens it and I see like almost like a video camera. It's like almost like it's through here
And
being
they spin,
projected.
and they
You
kind of
have this
spin.
you have this feeling, yeah. And
Yeah.
then as well, I would definitely say there's a chakra here and then down more in the gut.
Okay.
I can't really think of any other chakras that I can personally feel, but I don't believe that there's chakras in the earth. But anyways, Kwaku, thanks for telling us about that and giving me an opportunity to talk about that. And because I learn about things myself from the people on the other side from these really great questions, because believe me, I was not a lady who knew anything about chakras at all.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Kwaku. Scott writes, Are there just two origins of psychic ability, genetic in near death or resuscitation? Does either result in differences in psychic insights? The genetic cause is somewhat sciency and understandable. We see much in life that is genetically driven. The acquisition of abilities via dying for a brief period seems much more spiritual and unscientific. For the rest of us who may not have the genetics and would prefer not to die even for a short bit, what do we do? Thanks.
Um, well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of people who have it and just don't know that they have it.
Okay. Do you
You
think
know.
the near death experiences are when they call to wake you up and it's like, hey, you got this, time to get to work? Do you think that's
Um,
part of it?
No, no, that they are actually not somebody who is like there's nobody in their family who has it. They're not
Okay.
genetically predispositioned for it. But what happens is I heard somebody say when you were to reading that question, and for those of you who are new, that's why Rudy reads the questions, because one of the ways I'm able to kind of fight hyper focus on the answer is when someone else is talking about it, and then I start seeing some pictures start to fly around like in my head, and just knowings are coming about that. And I was told that it breaks the seal
Okay.
when you die.
Oh, you breaks the seal and you come back, so you have that connection then that you didn't have before.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause my seal is I don't have a seal. Like if you can't do mediumistic work, it's because, well, your seal is still, it's not
Interesting.
broken open. I mean, because that's that veil that has to
Okay.
be there in order for you to live a normal life and make those mistakes. I mean, it's kind of cheating really to be able to read minds and tell the future.
All right.
So, oh well.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, that
Oh
is a new insight we've never had before. So good question, Scott. I like
well.
that.
Me too.
Uba, I'm going to say this name right. Ur-
Urbanaut.
Urbanaut. Okay, good one. I could not get that. Urbanaut says, "Hi, Steve and Rudy. I had a near-death experience when I was 11, but not as the result of illness or injury. What is your take on why this might occur? I'm loving these sessions with Rudy, by the way. Thanks. Thanks, Urbanaut.
Yeah. Rudy always puts together a great show. Thanks for noticing, Urbanaut, and welcome to the Sam Jammers. I mean, if you can post a question, you are one of the Sam Jammer tiers. So I'm sure I'll see you in the Discord room. But in the meantime, your near death experience, I'm going to assume that maybe just something like your heart stopped and that you came back, something like that, like you just went out of your body and then you came back. See, I would have to ask him about that and
Okay.
say, do you know for sure that you were dead, or did you just go out of your body and astral project?
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, oh man, that was a problem. Staying in my body when I was in bed at night, it was like, this is getting crazy. And I knew I couldn't talk to anybody about it because they would just think I was lying to them, so I just
Yeah.
dealt with it on my own. But yeah, so sorry, Urbanaut, that it's kind of a partial answer. Just that, when we're little kids, this kind of stuff I think happens a lot, much more frequently, just because the veil hasn't completely
Okay.
dropped. So you don't even necessarily have to be somebody with mediumistic abilities to have that kind of stuff happen to you when you're a kid.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Sam. Z says, Sam, what do you see for the Australian economy, real estate, and general business in the next 3 to 4 years? And Australia's a huge country, Sam. So is there any one side of the country versus another that you see doing better or worse?
Okay, so what's going to happen is that this money printing will go on for another little bit. And then, okay, so imagine that the prices of houses will go up like this. And then what will happen is you'll see a collapse in the economy, but they're going to support the homeowners. Like they're going to try not to raise interest rates on houses, right? So they'll have an interest rate for one area, like short-term loans and bonds and that kind of thing. But for anybody who owns a home, get a different interest rate. That's what I'm feeling is going to happen, because they'll do anything to keep the housing market from collapsing. So what happens is that the housing, it'll just take like a little bit of a decline, and then it'll just flatten out and just go like, because remember, they're printing money, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to get to a point that, so, if someone was going to buy a house this year or next year in Australia, you'll probably pay more next year, but your cryptos will be worth a lot more next year than your house would be, for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the drought before in the area in the southwest Australia around Perth because that is a more I don't know, hydrated area, a lot more, a lot wetter down there.
Yes.
Do you see that area doing better than say Eastern Australia?
Yes. Like between if Australia was a clock, it would be like 7 to 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, that's that area. Perfect. All right. Lost Shaker says, Sam, what does Source say are the names of the aliens who will attack Earth in roughly 30 years? We need something easy to call them, other than to cross between other than a cross between an insect and a reptile. Wouldn't want to confuse them with the non-existent reptilians. I think Urbanots, because Urbanot just asked that question, right? Maybe he's
Yeah.
a secret one. I like that name.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Sam, do you have a name, or you think we'll know what to call? What do you think we'll call them?
Well, here I just made fun of, people who are like even making up names for things.
Right.
And, it's like, oh, what'd you hear that from a channeler? Someone who's channeling one of those aliens. Sorry. Okay. I should try not to make too much fun
Well,
because,
Lost,
we've all watched those. Listen, we've all watched those. I admit it. I admit it. I'm like, oh, what's this? Oh, channeling. And then I watch it. And then the people on the other side tell me. And then I think, you know what? If I didn't have abilities, I could be sucked in by this too, maybe, right?
it is. I
Yeah.
would say, Lost, you have first mover advantage. Name them yourself. Do an
Yes.
NFT of what
That's
they're going to
right.
look like, and I think you'll be in business. So,
Yes. Right on. So that's what Lot Shaker says that's what prompted the question was that we were making fun of somebody making up the names. But you're right, we should name them. So let's have a little
the naming contest.
discussion. Yeah, we should. And then and when we do up the NFT, because it'll be under the predictions, like the
Oh,
future ones, because we were meeting about that today. But we're doing a whole bunch of things. Like right now, we're trying to fix, people who are having problems on Patreon,
okay.
and getting kicked out of tiers. And because, like one little mistake with, PayPal or your credit card expiration. And if you're in a closed tier, I mean,
Yeah.
it can create a little bit of bedlam for you, right? So it's like, oh no.
Let me
So,
in. Let me in.
so we are trying to actually get something similar to Patreon
Okay.
going, but it's going to take a while. But we'll at least start with a website so that we can start having a place. So I did set up an emergency one a little while back in case things got shut down, that I would have a place that people could still communicate with me and everything, because we didn't know. Remember, when I unlisted all of
Right.
those videos. And then all of a sudden, I think that week, a bunch of people, like, it was like a massacre on YouTube.
Yeah.
They just took so many channels down. So many people were just booted off. And I was like, no, cryptos are too important. And they booted off a lot of crypto people
Yeah.
as well. But anyways, okay, we still have more questions here, and
All
we're
right.
just over the hour point. So I'll get
Last
moving. We
one.
got a last question.
Nika stuck in the last question. This is a good one for the end. Q said the first arrest will shock the world. Could the first arrest be Donald Trump? What do you think, Sam?
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay.
I would go against everything I've seen for
Okay.
sure. And you know what? Just between you and me, I might get in trouble for this, speaking about getting kicked off of things. But I got more information today that it's definitely going to be the military. I was like, yay! I'm
If
going
you
to be
want,
right. I'm going to be right. I know it.
if anybody watches Praying Medic, he's come to this conclusion as well, and I think through his dreams, but
Oh,
logically, the way he plays it out, it's you're
okay.
like, okay, I can see you saying, how this would play out that way. So it's interesting.
Oh, well, thanks for sharing that, because I haven't, I know that he moved,
Hmm.
and I haven't heard any of his stuff recently, but I did notice that he started talking about dreams and
Yeah.
things like that a lot more recently, and sharing his knowings there. So, I think he probably has some abilities, but again, being a card carrying charismatic Christian, that
Yeah.
is an alliteration. That's card carrying
That's true.
charismatic Christian. And and I have a lot of respect for them, because they welcome
Yeah.
people like me who speak in tongues. I don't get made fun of. I can
Yeah.
speak in tongues all I want. They're like, oh, that's a really cool one. I'm like, because they're real.
Great. Well,
Uh,
Sam, in 2 weeks we'll be back, and we have Barton is going to share a story with us 2 weeks.
oh,
That'll be great. After my vacation, I won't have to restart my brain so quickly. So looking
okay.
forward to that.
All right, fantastic. And now I'm going to go in, and I am going to open this up for the general tier so that they can watch the unedited version. They can't join us in the chat, but they can certainly enjoy the unedited version from start to finish, which tonight is over an hour. So thanks so much again, Rudy, for putting together a fantastic show. And even though you're on vacation next week, will we see you 2 weeks from now? Are you still going to be on
Yes.
vacation?
No, I will be back, but
Okay.
Barton will have the topic for us. So I'll have to I'll just read the questions.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, I knew you'd figure something out. Okay, thanks everybody, and I'll see many of you, I'm sure, tomorrow when we have the weekly crypto review with Muant. So bye for now.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.